Hello, and welcome to another edition of Coffee Talk with immigration attorney and estate attorney Brian D. Lerner. I'm here to give you some pointers on what is an advanced healthcare directive and why you need and should get that done as part of your estate planning. A lot of people think that when you say estate planning, all it involves is in case you die or in case your spouse dies. That's it. And the living trust and the will and last will and testament and the pour over will and all that stuff is all that you need to be concerned about when you're doing estate planning, and that is not true. Okay, that's really only half of it, or 60%, somewhere in that neighborhood. The part that you need to be equally concerned about is if you become incapacitated. What's that mean? Okay, what does incapacity mean? Does it mean when you're sleeping? Does it mean when you're in surgery? Does it mean when you've gotten in a car accident and you have brain injury? What exactly does it mean? Well, there's all kinds of case law and statutes on how to determine whether someone is incapacitated, and there are certainly cases that are on the gray line as to whether they are or are not. But I'm focusing this particular video mostly on when there really isn't any issue. Let us say that you go into surgery, you're elderly, you go into surgery, the surgery is somewhat successful in that you come out and you're still alive, but you're on the ventilator, you are not conscious, and it is the machine that is keeping you alive. This would be essentially when you would be considered to be incapacitated. Now, while you're incapacitated, there's two major parts here that come up to your attention, which needs to be thought of beforehand, not during or after, because you can't do it during or after. I mean, just think about it. You can't ask someone who's unconscious on a ventilator what they want to do, okay, or how they want certain things done. It's not possible. And that is why the Advanced Health Care Directive deals with the medical part of what it is you want or don't want when you are incapacitated. And when I say you, I'm not just talking about you, I'm also talking about your spouse. It could be one or the other, and that's why when doing a proper estate plan, essentially you have to have an advanced healthcare directive for you and an advanced healthcare directive for your spouse, and they may not be the same. I mean, your spouse may want to donate every you know organ in her body for medical research, and you may want to donate organs in your body, but you may not want to do it for medical research. You might want to make sure that there is a live recipient. So it depends. Or you may not want to do organ donation, or you may want to give your spouse the authority to say pull the plug. After 30 days, if there's been no improvement, your spouse might say under no circumstances do you pull the plug, or you might say, your spouse might say, if you're incapacitated for more than a week, do not issue a issue a do not resuscitate order, and allow her to pass on in peace. It just all depends on what you want. So you can see, without me even getting into more specifics about the healthcare directive, that it can vary all over the place what it is that you want. Now, the Advanced Healthcare Directive, among other things, allows an individual to direct his or her doctor to withhold or withdraw life-sustaining medical treatment in the event of terminal illness or permanent unconsciousness. And even that definition has issues, like when is it considered to be permanent? Is it permanent after a week? Is it permanent after 10 days? Who makes the diagnosis of whether it's permanent and so forth? Or if the burdens of the treatment outweigh the expected benefits. I mean, when we get right down to it, maybe it's possible to keep somebody alive, but maybe they have to, uh, maybe they have to have chemotherapy and dialysis, and maybe they can't eat. Maybe they have to have a tube down their throat, and maybe, 10 other things have to happen in order for them to stay alive. And maybe they just don't want to live that kind of life. It all depends. It depends on that person. Okay. Maybe some people will want to have everything under the sun done in order to maintain their life, in the hopes that maybe something will happen that will change the course, or something to that effect. Other people, they don't want to put their spouse through it, and they just want to go peacefully without any real fight type thing. Other people might want to freeze certain parts that have stem cells in order to do research. I mean, there's all kinds of things people could want to do. The individual could also direct that he or she receive treatment in order to provide the necessary comfort and relieve pain. So maybe that would involve, if somebody, also says, essentially when to pull the plug. If there's going to be like, 8 or 10 hours or 15 hours before they pass on, with the proper healthcare directive, they might be able to be given morphine or something to that effect, which would, of course, make them more comfortable during the time before they would pass. Um, None of this stuff is easy to talk about, especially if you're sitting there in front of an attorney and you're essentially saying, what happens if you become incapacitated? And there's always examples. What happens if the next day you're driving a car and you get a brain injury? What happens if you have a stroke? All this stuff. But it's a whole lot easier to know that if you can at least resolve the healthcare directive before it becomes necessary. I know a lot of people say, well, I'm young, I don't need to worry about that. I'll worry about that when I hit 70. It doesn't work like that, because unless you have a crystal ball, you're not going to know what's going to happen. And I certainly wouldn't want to be fatalistic, but by the same token, don't you want your wishes to be followed should you become incapacitated? Don't you want to think about right now what might happen, so that you can at least have peace of mind? I mean, you might live until you're 98 years old without anything happening and go in your sleep, but you might not. And so the Advance Health Care Directive takes care of all of that. And the person who you allow to make the decision is called an agent. Okay, there's different nomenclature for each instrument in an estate plan. But for the Advanced Healthcare Directive, it is called the agent. And the bottom line is it allows the agent to make healthcare decisions for the principal, which would be the person who is incapacitated, if that principal is unable to make decisions on their own. Okay. The agent can determine the nature of the medical care as to whether to withhold certain types of medical care. And bottom line is the agent has the same right as the principal to receive information regarding the proposed health care, to receive and review medical records, to consent to the disclosure of medical records, and has priority over any other person to make healthcare decisions for the principal. That's over anybody, okay? And the authority to even make post-death decisions regarding organ donations under the Uniform Anatomical Gift Act, and also disposition of the deceased principal remains. So, it all works together to, number one, it's hard enough on your family, of course, when you're incapacitated, but at least if you have the Advanced Health Care Directive, the agent knows what you want. It's listed in the Advanced Health Care Directive, and it will go fairly smoothly, and you'll get your wishes and make it easier on your family. Now, obviously, you will also need to allow the agent to get access to all your medical records should that be necessary, and that's done through a HIPAA declaration, which that by itself could save numerous hours of heartache and time by doing it. So as you can see, there's quite a bit that can be accomplished through the Advance Health Care Directive. So you want to try to get it done. If you like the video, subscribe, and also go ahead and give me a call or give my office a call and send an email if you'd like to have a consultation. Okay, more on the coming videos.